Chapter Growth of Nationalism. Let's see what we are going to study here. Total of 30 questions. It's the Indian History section chapter syllabus. Chapters divided into 5 parts. The introduction is questions 1 and 2. Then we come to factors promoting the growth of nationalism, which are 4 main factors: role of press, repressive colonial policies, economic exploitation, and social religious reform movements. Then we have the first two leaders of your syllabus, Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Jyotiba Phule. Precursors of Indian National Congress, 3 organizations came before Congress. There were many more as per your syllabus. They want you to learn only 3. Then how did the Indian National Congress get formed? Aims of the Indian National Congress and sessions of the Indian National Congress. The last 2 parts are additional questions and application questions. Total of 30 questions from this chapter. Let's see the first answer. Explain the term nationalism. 3 points. Nationalism refers to the feeling of oneness. Pay attention to the keywords. Common consciousness that emerges when people living in a common territory share. This is because of their same historical, political, and cultural background. They have the same language, they have the same cultural values, and consider them as one nation. It's underlined here. This point has to be learned as it is. 9 keywords: feeling of oneness, common consciousness, common territory, common history, common political, cultural background, same language, cultural values, and consider them as one nation. Nationalism emerges when we support India in any kind of sports, Olympics, cricket matches. When India does well, we feel very happy. It's because of the feeling of nationalism, because we consider ourselves as one nation. Point number 2: in nationalism, one should be allowed to choose our own leaders and a system of government and have an independent state rather than be a part of someone else's empire and ruled by foreigners against our will. Do we have our own freedom? Do we have our democracy? Yes. Can we choose our own government? Yes. And we are not a part of someone else's empire. At that time, we were part of the British Empire. The second half of the 19th century witnessed the emerging of national political consciousness and a strong feeling of nationalism. That is after the First War of Independence, that was the previous chapter, 1857. The nationalism feeling in Indians started increasing. That was during the second half of the 19th century. There were many factors which contributed to the growth of nationalism, which we are going to study in this chapter. Question number 2: why was the feeling of nationalism lacking before the arrival of British? So, before the arrival of British, we were all divided among kings. Though India had a long history going back many centuries, we were never one nation, and we always comprised of many kingdoms. However, there were times where the vast portions of the Indian subcontinent came under one rule. For example, you studied it last year, Mauryans. Mauryans built a pan-India empire. But when they built the pan-India empire, we were under the Mauryan rule. We were never one nation. We were always divided into many kingdoms. Point number 2: the loyalty of the people was always towards a particular king or kingdom. Mauryan Empire, the famous Mughal Empire. The modern feelings of nationalism were lacking among us because we were always loyal towards king and kingdoms. It emerged when the British rule came in. As a reaction to the British rule and the clash of interest of the Indians with those of the British. Because the interests of Indians and British were different, now people started asking for a common one nation, that is a common territory called India, because they wanted betterment of India now. Now we want the betterment of India, not a particular king or kingdom. Question 3, factors which promote the growth of nationalism. Here we are going to mainly focus on four factors: economic exploitation, British repressive colonial policies, role of the press, and socio-religious reform movements. Let's see the first one, question number 4 onwards, role of the press. How did press help to encourage the growth of nationalism? So at that time, obviously, press means mainly newspapers also played a part. Obviously, there was no internet. So writing material, here we have writing material, name some prominent newspapers. The large number of newspapers started growing, were published in the later half of the 19th century. They were published. Names are, you have to learn the names, very important. Amrit Bazar Patrika, the Bengali, the Tribune, the Pioneer, and the Times of India. Two more are there. The Hindu and the Statesman were published in English. So obviously, if your school or the board wants to trick you, they'll give you English newspaper names, which was the Hindu and the Statesman. Moving to the 4 points of role of nationalism. Liberty, freedom, equality, home rule, and independence. These are the keywords. Message of patriotism and modern liberal ideas. Message of India, oneness, and modern liberal ideas spread through liberty, freedom, equality, home rule, and independence among the people. Second one, true nature and daily criticism. The British exposed the true nature of the British rule in India and carried on daily criticism of the unjust policies which the British was doing in India. That is, the British government in India was doing unjust policies. They were exposing those every day. Daily criticism and true nature of the British rule in India. Exchanging of views. Exchanging of views among different social groups from different parts of the country helped in organizing political movements. Because of the writings, we could come to know what was happening in the north, what was happening in the south, what was happening in the west, what was happening in the east, and India could get connected because of the writings. Point number 3 and 4, very similar. 3 speaks about connecting India inside, exchanging views inside the country. Writings also made Indians aware of what was happening around the world. So here we are speaking about inside the country. Here we are speaking about the same point outside the country, what was happening around the world, which helped Indians to shape our own policies and programs. So you did 4 points plus the newspapers. This is how the role of press played an important role in increasing or growing the sentiments of nationalism among Indians. Growth of nationalist sentiments or nationalism among Indians. Moving to the second one out of the fourth one, as we said, repressive colonial policies. The British introduced in this, you're going to study 5 colonial policies which the British introduced, which created a lot of trouble for Indians. Hence, the growth of nationalism increased. Let's see the first one. Age was reduced from 21 to 19. the maximum age limit for the ICS, Indian Civil Service Examinations, was reduced from 21 to 19. You see how British tactically reduced the age. That means it was first 21, you could give the exam till the age of 21. Now they reduced it to 19, and that also only for Indians, making it impossible for the Indians to compete and pass the exam. Now, what is this? This is the ICS examination, Indian Civil Service Examination. That means this exam is today also given by those who want to be a part of the government. UPSC, you must have heard. At that time, it was like ICS. And the British played a very tactical move of reducing the age limit for Indians to pass the exam from 21 to 19. Obviously, both exams are different. It is just a correlation which I'm trying to give. 21 to 19 ICS ka age was reduced. This was the first repressive colonial policy. Second one, import duties. Import duties means taxes. The import duties on British textiles were abolished. So they are not going to pay taxes. When they are bringing goods from Britain to India, when they are bringing goods from Britain to India, they are not going to pay us taxes. Import duty is abolished. Every country has to pay import duty. If you want to sell in a foreign market, you have to pay that country to allow you to sell there. So here the import duty they want to sell in our market because ours is a very good sales market. But import duty is abolished. They are not going to pay us tax, thus proving harmful for the Indian local handloom industry. So our Indian products could not compete with British products. Why? Because they are not paying us tax. If they are not paying us tax, the product becomes very cheap to be sold in India. So it's a foreign product, it's a cheap product, it's a better quality product. I repeat, British goods were foreign, better quality, and now cheap because they are not paying us import duty. This side, ours was expensive, bad quality, and handmade. So obviously, people would start preferring their products. So they stopped paying us import duty, thus making Indian local handloom industry harmful. It's Indian local handloom industry suffered. Third, repressive colonial policies. The Grand Delhi Darbar was organized by Lord Lytton in 1877 to proclaim Queen Victoria as the Empress of India. So it was a event to show that now Queen Victoria is the Empress of India. Although the Queen did not come to India, Lord Lytton had represented the Queen. A huge amount of money, that is lakhs of rupees at that time, was spent on the event when the entire country was reeling in famine. The entire country doesn't have enough food, reeling in famine. But England, that is British Empire, is celebrating Grand Delhi Darbar. And the Queen Victoria at that time was proclaimed Empress of India. She did not come. So there were three, a little more information. Three Grand Delhi Darbars were held, 77, 1903, and 1911, if I'm not wrong. In the first two, the queens did not come, the kings and the queens did not come. In the third one, Queen Mary, if I'm not wrong, came to India. But we come back to this point, Grand Delhi Darbar, countries reeling in famine. British is celebrating Grand Delhi Darbar by spending lakhs of rupees. Two acts were introduced, mark them very important. They have to ask you the two acts. What were the two names of the acts? The Vernacular Press Act and the Arms Act, 1878. Two acts were introduced. Let's see them in detail. First one, Vernacular Press Act. It forbade vernacular newspapers. So it was only applicable to vernacular newspapers. It forbade. Forbade matlab did not allow. It did not allow, or it forbade vernacular newspapers to publish any material that might rise the feelings of dissatisfaction and incite the Indians against the British. So, as a vernacular newspaper, you cannot write anything which was going to show the negative side of British and going to arise the feelings of dissatisfaction and incite the Indians against the British, that the British are not good enough. Was the British not good enough? Yes. But now you can't write anything. So if I take you to the previous point, this point comes to a halt. They exposed the true nature of the British rule in India and carried on daily criticism of unjust policies of British government in India. And whatever the unjust policies, whatever the true nature of the British rule is there in India, now you cannot write about that. You cannot write about anything which is going to increase or arise the feelings of dissatisfaction in Indians among the Britishers. But it was only applicable to the vernacular newspapers. This act was not applicable to the English newspapers. Confirmed? The act was repealed by Ripon 4 years later, 1882. Underline the R's. R for Ripon, R for repealed, R for removed. So Ripon removed this act. Ripon was the next lord who came after Lytton. Lytton introduced the act, Ripon removed the act 4 years later. This was the Vernacular Press Act, very important. The second act which was introduced is the Arms Act. It made it a criminal offense for Indians to possess arms without a license. So 1878 में दूसरा act आया where Indians cannot possess arms without a license. Again, this act was not applicable to the British. British, for self-defense or for their purpose, they can carry arms without a license. Indians couldn't carry arms without a license. What was the impact on Indians? Mainly of Vernacular Press Act, that's the question. It left deep scars of dissatisfaction and discontentment among Indians. Obviously, Indians were not happy with these acts. Lord Lytton introduced them. 78, Vernacular Press and Arms Act. The two acts are very important. Moving to one more very important answer, which they will ask you for sure. Ilbert Bill controversy. Ilbert Bill controversy. Let's see what is it. Sir C.P. Ilbert, the law member of the Viceroy's Council, prepared a bill. So Lord Ripon told him to prepare a bill. Lord Ripon was a good lord. He helped Indians. So Lord Ripon tells Sir C.P. Ilbert, prepare a bill. C.P. Ilbert is the law member of the Viceroy's Council. This bill was known as the Ilbert Bill, 1883. It was introduced by the Viceroy Lord Ripon. This was your introduction. Let's see the meaning. This bill enables Indian judges to try European criminals and offenders in a criminal case. So a European who's done a crime with respect to a criminal cases are severe cases, like for example, it may involve killing of someone. So if a European has killed someone, it may be an Indian. Earlier, European cases used to go to European judges only. European cases, repeating, used to go to European judges only. Now this bill allows European cases, that is European offenders, to be tried by Indian judges also. So European ka case pehle European pe paas jata tha, now it may go to an Indian judge. The aim of this bill was to abolish, see the keywords, abolish judicial disqualification based on race discrimination. I'll read the statement 2 times. Abolish judicial disqualification based on race discrimination. Once more, abolished judicial disqualification based on race distinction. Their aim was to bring equality in the justice system. Europeans should not only be tried by Europeans, they can be tried by Indians also. Why? Because Indian judges are equally capable. At that time, it used to happen that European cases used to go to European judges. And obviously, being Europeans, there might be corruption which might happen, settling of cases which might happen, and true justice was not given. So, to abolish judicial disqualification on race distinction, true justice should be given. As a result, the case of a European could go to an Indian judge. This is your introduction and meaning. Indian judges could try European offenders in criminal cases as per the Ilbert Bill. Now let's see what happens. The reaction to this bill, the Europeans in India obviously did not like this, and they started an agitation. They started a protest, started going against the bill. It was a vociferous agitation. Vociferous means loud. The name of this agitation was known as Defense Association. They wanted to defend their special right and special privilege. This reaction provoked a counter agitation by the Indians. So if they were protesting, we also educated Indians also started an agitation. Outcome. The European lobby was successful and the bill was withdrawn. So judicial disqualification continued. The bill was withdrawn. And as we learn it, MMM was introduced. MMM. A more moderate measure was introduced. Basically, a very lenient version of the bill was introduced, which vested the power of trying Europeans to a sessions judge and a district magistrate who might be an Indian. So these are two positions of judges which are very high position judges who might be an Indian. At that time, there were not so many sessions judge and district magistrates. And even if they were, the case might go to an Indian judge who might be a sessions judge or a district magistrate, or it might go to a European also. Revising, vociferous agitation was organized to defend their special privilege that was named Defense Association. This reaction provoked a counter agitation by Indians also. Educated Indians also said we should get judicial disqualification should be abolished, but the Europeans wanted their special privilege. So the bill was withdrawn, a more moderate measure was introduced. That is, Europeans could be tried by a sessions judge or a district magistrate who might be an Indian. Final point conclusion, the Ilbert Bill controversy showed Indians that justice and fair play could not be expected where the interests of the British were involved. So they did not want to give away their special privilege, and justice and fair play could not be expected where the interests of the British were involved. Ilbert Bill controversy, very, very important. This is Lord Ripon. He introduced Ilbert Bill. He removed or repealed the Vernacular Press Act also. Moving to the third one, economic exploitation. That is, we did role of press. We did a controversial, that is, repressive colonial policies. We see economic exploitation now. That is how the Indians realized that the aim of the British policies was to promote their own interest. British wanted to grow at the cost of the welfare of Indians. Hence, economic exploitation of different sections of the society started or were happening. The first one, which was the main victims, were the peasants. They were the main victims of the economic policies of the British. Why? Because India is an agrarian economy. So the main victims were the British. A large portion of their produce was taken away by the government in the form of land revenue and taxes. So British is taking a large amount of produce what they are growing in the name of land revenue and taxes. This led them into the clutches of landlords and money lenders. They went into debt. They went into debt. This led them into the clutches of landlords and money lenders, which put them in debt. This one, second half. According to the new British policy, if a farmer was unable to pay back his loan, the money lender could get the farmer's land transferred into his name in lieu of the money. In lieu, matlab in exchange of the money. So if you can't pay the money, you give your land to us. That is, the farmer's land is going to the money lender who's a Britisher. They were forced to cultivate indigo in the fields chosen by the British. Hence, we see that the peasants are the main victims and were the main people or the group which was suffering because of the economic policies. Second group was the artisans and the craftsmen. Artisans and the craftsmen, India became a source of cheap raw materials for the industries of British and the market for their finished goods. So they used to take our raw materials at a cheaper price. Raw materials were converted into finished goods and sold to India at an expensive price. So our raw materials are converted into finished goods and sold to us only at an expensive price, taken at a cheaper price, sold at an expensive price. This concept of taking at a cheap and selling at expensive, raw materials going cheaply, sold to us at an expensive price, was fueling the foreign economy. It crippled the Indian economy. Our economy was getting destroyed, but the British economy was earning. As it destroyed the Indian handicrafts and industries, as we then lost our means of livelihood. British artisans and craftsmen lost their means of livelihood because of this policy. So the second group or second section of the society which was suffering was the artisans and the craftsmen. The third section was the working class. The working class was born due to the growth of modern industries. So whoever got unemployed, whoever lost their jobs, artisans, craftsmen, peasants, they had to work somewhere, right? So they joined the working class. This working class was born due to the growth of modern industries. So who had taken your job away? The modern industries had taken your job away in some way. That is, the economy is getting crippled. Indian economy is getting crippled. Now you have to work in the industry because you don't have an option. That's one way of looking at it. They were exploited by factory owners. These owners of industries were generally Englishmen. Although the working class formed a small section of the population, they had a broad social outlook which covered the whole of India, which was far more than their numerical strength. So, although they were very small in number, but wherever they were, their social outlook was the same. What was the social outlook? One of the social outlooks which they had was that they had lost their job or source of livelihood because of the British. So, because they don't have anything, they are going to form the working class. So, although they were small in section, but they were spread all over India and they knew what had happened with them. They had a broad social outlook. And the last section was the educated Indians. Even the educated Indians suffered because of the British. They comprised of doctors, teachers, lawyers, and the only source of available employment for them was the government services. So they have done a lot of padhai, they have done a lot of studies, they have passed the ICSE examinations, as we said, and now they want to work for the government because it gives them good source of income. But the problem is what? Here the competition is very high and the promotion is very bleak. So after studying so much, after putting in so much effort plus so much wealth towards ICS examinations and other sources of studies, now you are not getting a job because the competition is very high, the promotion is bleak. The British government of India is only supporting Britishers. They had initially hoped that the British rule, that is the British capitalism, will help India grow as it had done in British. Instead, they found that the British policies were keeping India backwards. This was the fourth section and the final section of society which was affected. Thus, all sections of the society felt that their salvation, that their freedom lies in freeing themselves from the British rule. The British rule should go, so peasants, artisans, craftsmen, working class, educated Indians, basically every section will become happy. To achieve these objectives, the Indian people had to come together on a national platform. Thus, it gave rise to something called as nationalism, as we are speaking in this chapter. Give two reasons how industrial stagnation during the British rule happened in India. How did our industries not grow? Stagnation means not growing. Our industries are not growing because number one, raw materials are taken from us to the Britain. Raw materials were exported to the British, and hence India rapidly declined as manufacturing. So whatever good quality raw materials are there from here is going to Britain. So declined as a manufacturing and industrial sector. We are declining as a manufacturing and industrial sector. Point number two, the policy of free trade. We did this. They are not going to pay us tax. They are not going to pay us import duty. So the policy of free trade, they are not paying us tax or import duty, destroyed our Indian textile and handicraft industries. We were not be able to compete with their machine made cheap goods. Their goods were machine made, cheap and good quality. Our goods were opposite. Cheap became opposite. Ours was expensive. Theirs was machine made, ours was handmade. Their quality was good, our quality was bad. So the policy of free trade destroyed our Indian textile and handicraft. This is how industrial stagnation occurred during the British rule in India. The fourth and the final factor which led to the growth of nationalism was the social religious movements. These movements of the 19th century were great pioneers for Indian nationalism. They worked in the following spheres: social and religious. So we said if we want to remove the British, we will have to come together. If you want to remove the British, you will have to come together. And when Indians want to come together, you will have to give away those backward practices. Indians had some backward thinking, Indians had the backward practices. The old mindset had to be given away. In the social sphere, that is society, how will society improve? You will have to stop doing the following. You will have to become a little modern, which will help in growth of nationalism. Everybody will come together, including women and children and everybody. Upper class, lower class, everybody has to come together. Abolition of caste system will have to be done. Child marriage has to stop. Dowry has to stop. Parda system has to stop. Parda means wearing gungat. Sati has to stop. Infanticide has to stop. That is killing of usually girl child. Thus, these launched a crusade against social and legal inequalities. These inequality practices has to stop. In the religious spheres, that is in the religious section, we will have to stop this. Attacked idolatry. Don't worship only idols. Polytheism. Polytheism means believing in more than one god. Heredity priesthood. Heredity priesthood means priest ka beta can only become priest. The Brahmins will only become priest, the Brahmin caste. And combated religious superstitions and fought for individual liberty and social equality. They said if we have to overcome these problems, overcome this mindset, when we overcome this mindset, we will become united, nationalism will grow, and when nationalism will grow, we will be able to fight the Britain more easily. Question 11 has these movements which started institutions. You'll have to learn 4 of them have come as match the following, name the following, or short answer as well as long answer. You'll have to learn these. Satya Shodak Samaj was founded by Jyotiba Phule. Ramakrishna Mission was founded by Swami Vivekanand. Arya Samaj was founded by Swami Dayanand Saraswati. And Brahmo Samaj was founded by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. These are institutions, these are movements which started so that people could join and nationalism could grow. Mention 4 socio-religious reform movements that led to the rise of nationalism in India in the 19th century, that is social religious reform movements. Here we have 6 points. Let's see them. The socio-religious reform movements contributed on the onset of Indian nationalism in the following ways, 6 of them. First one, Swami Dayanand Saraswati. He was the first one to use the word Swaraj and raised the slogan India for Indians, thus protested against the British rule in India. Second one, Swami Dayanand and Swami Vivekanand proclaimed that the superiority of Indian culture and civilization. So they said that our India has a great past. Our India has a worthwhile past which people look up to. We have the civilizations of Harappan, Indus Valley. We have the Mughal Empire, the Mauryan Empire, the Chola Empire. Hence, we have a superior history and we should not be ruled by some other country or foreigners. Hence, they wanted to proclaim the superiority of Indian culture and the civilization. We also have the Vedas, which you've done last year, chapter 2. The different Vedas, the epics like the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and so on. So these 2 leaders proclaim the superiority of India's past. Pan-Indianism and spirit of nationalism. The reform movements drew inspiration from India's cultural heritage. As we just spoke, we can make a bracket for 2 and 3, very similar. That our Indian culture has great heritage. Our Indian cultural heritage and our history is very great. And it promoted a feeling of pan-Indianism and spirit of nationalism. The reform movements condemned untouchability. They said we have to let go of untouchability, we have to let go of caste system, and thus promote the ideals of brotherhood and equality, and which attracted the lower caste also in the national movements. Basically, we want everybody in the national movements. We want Indians to stand together in the national movement, whether higher class, lower class, rich, poor, men, women, educated or not. Fifth one, caste, greed, or religion. A consciousness of new society devoid of privileges. No one should get privileges on the basis of caste, creed, religion. We all are equal. Was created by the reform movements. We'll make a bracket for 4 and 5, very similar. They wanted to spread brotherhood and wanted a society which would be devoid of privileges. The reformers also taught the importance of women who could participate in the national movement. Thus, we should not ignore them. Why? Because approximately 50% of the population are women. If they join, the numerical strength would almost double. This is the social religious reform movements, quickly going through that point. Slogans and words like Swaraj, Swami Dayanand, and Swami Vivekanand. India's rich cultural heritage and pan-Indianism and spirit of nationalism. Let go of untouchability and caste system. Point number 4. Point number 5. A society which is devoid of privileges. Point number 6. Women should participate in the national movement and we should not ignore them. Moving to the first leader of your syllabus, you have many leaders in your syllabus up to page chapter 15. The first leader of your syllabus, Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Picture study. First, I'll show you his picture. Remember, it can come in school exams for picture study. 7 points. You will need to know all 7. Let's see the first one. He was one of the greatest social and religious reformers of the 19th century. Social and religious reformer. The second one, Sati illegal. It was because of his efforts, Sati became illegal. Very good. He wanted to do away with social and religious evils which were prevalent in Bengal at that time. So he wanted to do with the evils. He wanted to get away with the evils. Evils in the sense you can say the backward thinking. And he operated mainly in Bengal. As the name you can say Raja Ram Mohan Roy. The name is Bengali. So he operated in Bengal. It was because of his efforts, William Bentinck, the Governor General of India at that time, passed the law in 1829. Date is important, making sati illegal in India. So an age-old practice, which was obviously debatable, it was not right. Sati was not right. An age-old practice of sati has come to an end, and sati was made illegal and punishable by law. William Bentinck, the Governor General of India, 1829, passed the law making sati illegal and punishable by law. It was because of the efforts of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He protested against the restrictions on freedom of press, third one, and was against the rigid caste system. He started campaigns for the abolition of sati. He fought against Parda system, condemned polygamy, discouraged child marriage, and advocated the rights of widow to remarry. So these were the 4 points for which he worked towards. The second one is very important. You have to know the second one because sati becomes illegal because of his efforts. Polygamy was the concept or this of having more than one wife, that is multiple marriages at a time. So he was also against polygamy. For want to know the meaning of polygamy. 5, 6, 7. Again, the second one, as we said, illegal. Sati point is important. Yeah, this point is important. He founded an organization called as Brahmo Sabha, which was later renamed as Brahmo Samaj. Can come as MCQ, has come as MCQ. It believed in monotheism. Mono means one. It believed in the worship of one God. It laid emphasis on prayer, meditation, charity, morality, strengthening of the bonds of unity between men of religion and creed. It condemned idol worship. Prayer, meditation, charity, morality, bonds of unity between men and other men, between men of religions and creed is encouraged. Idolatry is not. Brahmo Sabha renamed as Brahmo Samaj. Sixth one, in the words of Ravindranath Tagore, again can come as MCQ. Raja Ram Mohan Roy inaugurated the modern age in India. He was known as the father of Indian Renaissance. It was because of him, he was one of the first leaders, as you see in your syllabus also. The modern age in India started. People started changing their thought process. Sati, for example, was declared as illegal and punishable by the law. So he was the father of Indian Renaissance and the prophet of Indian nationalism. These were the titles given to him. And lastly, he believed in the concept of unity of all religions. And he took inspirations from the monotheism of Islam. How Islam believes in one God. He said, learn from good from all religions. Learn the good from all religions. Monotheism from Islam, the teachings of Bible, and the doctrines propagated by the Upanishads. So Hindus, they could Sikho, Christians, Bible, they could Sikho, Muslims, that is Islam community, they could Sikho. So this one speaks about Brahmo Samaj. This one gives them titles, Father of Renaissance, Indian Renaissance, and Prophet of Indian Nationalism, and learn good from each religion. This is his picture study. This brings us to the end of the first leader, 7 points under Raja Ram Mohan Roy. All you will have to learn. Moving to the second leader, Jyotiba Phule. Jyotiba Phule again can come as picture study in your school exam. This is our second leader in our syllabus. Let's see the 6 works or 6 points of his contributions. He was an urban educated member of the low caste. These words are important. Why? Because he was urban educated, he was educated, so he had studied, he got education, but he was a member of the low caste. At that time, caste system prevailed, and when caste system prevails, it becomes very difficult for low caste to get educated because caste system is there. Low caste faces more difficulties, and he was from the low caste. So his education and personal experiences made him crucial of the Hindu religion. Made him critical of the Hindu religion and customs. Being from the low caste, he must have faced difficulties at that time. He must have faced obstacles and barriers. Despite that, he got educated and he contributed to the society. So his personal experiences had made him critical of how Hindu customs and religions work. Yet he got educated and contributed to the society. How? Point number 2, he founded the Satya Shodak Samaj, 1873. The aim was of securing social justice for the weaker sections of the society. सत्य शोधक समाज का एम क्या था this organization का to get justice for the weaker sections of the society. Why? Because he himself was from the weaker section. So he said we should help them out to bring India forward. He pioneered the widow remarriage in Maharashtra, movement in Maharashtra. So as you can see, he operates in Maharashtra. He was from Maharashtra. Raja Ram Mohan Roy mainly worked in Bengal. In 1854, he started the School for Untouchables and started a private orphanage for widows. These were the sections which were mainly kept behind untouchables, widows. So he's helping them. He wanted to liberate the depressed classes and make them aware of their rights by educating them. He himself had got educated. He said spread as much as education as possible, especially for the depressed classes. And the last point, he also worked for the education for women. He, along with his wife in 1848, opened the first school for girls in India. So he starts education for girls, women, school for untouchables, orphanage for the widows, widow remarriage act, widow remarriage he wanted, started Satya Shodak Samaj and liberate the depressed classes. He contributed in these ways for the growth of nationalism and taking India forward. Moving to the next part of the chapter, We study about the precursors of Indian National Congress. So the Indian National Congress organization got formed, and obviously before the Indian National Congress got formed, there were other political institutions which came. In your syllabus, now you have three of them. Earlier there were more, now they've only kept it to three. The first one we learn about is the East India Association. 5 points for East India Association. Very simple. Number one, it was founded in London in 1866 by Dadabhai Nauroji. We're going to learn about Dadabhai a lot in the coming pages and chapters. Point number 2 and 3, what was its main job? It provided information on all Indian subjects to the British members of parliament and citizens. So, whatever was happening in India, you had to communicate it to the Britain people, that is, British parliament and citizens, that how the British India government was doing wrong with respect to India, so that the citizens of Britain and parliament knows, so that they can improve the situation. It voiced all grievances of India, जो भी problem था वो बताया. Apart from that, it also gave remedial measures. It also gave solutions. Dadabhai believed that British were basically just and fair. Dadabhai used to believe that British were just and fair. Hence, he said if you put forward the problems of Indians before the British, they will solve it. Whatever problems we have, if we tell the British, they will solve it. Why? Because Dadabhai believed that the British were just and fair. That's what his thought process was. You learn about Dadabhai in the coming pages. East India Association had its branches in three cities, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. 5 simple points for East India Association. Second association, Indian Association. Second body is the Indian Association. 1876. It was headed by Surendranath Banerjee. It constituted of lawyers, professionals, and educated middle class as its members. So mainly the educated people became its members. It had branches in Bengal and outside Bengal as 44 of them. You can see Bengal, and Surendranath Banerjee started it, headed by Surendranath Banerjee. The name itself tells you Banerjee means he worked in Bengal. 4 aims and 3 achievements. The first one, its aim was mass participation in public movements. You wanted as many as people to join the public movements. The bigger the number, the better it is for a public movement. It creation of a strong body of public opinion. So if one person says, it will not make as much as an impact as when the entire mass participation says. So you create a body where public opinion is given, voiced, people join it, and the movement becomes bigger and bigger. Promote friendly relations between Hindu and Muslims. And integration of Indian people on the basis of common political interest. You want people to come together. So the first two are similar. You want more people. When more people will come, it will create a body of public opinion. The next two are similar. Hindus, Muslims should become friends. And all people of India should also become friends, integrate on the same lines on common political interest. Achievements, it worked was three of them. It achieved the following 3 points. It launched agitations against oppressive acts. It went against acts like License Act, Arms Act, Vernacular Press Act, and lowering of ICSE examination age from 21 to 19. So it fought against these three. What was this? To make you remember, please write their repressive R, colonial C policies. These were the repressive colonial policies of which Lord? Of Lord Lytton. These were the repressive colonial policies of Lord Lytton, which it fought against. Indian Association achieved agitations. It fought against the license, vernacular, arms, and lowering of age from 21 to 19. These were all repressive colonial policies, wala points, which you have done in the first half of the chapter. Second one, it took up the cause for better working conditions of workers, improve karo conditions on British-owned plantations and tenants in zamindari tracts. So wherever Indians are working, the conditions improve karo. It may be plantations or it may be on zamindari tracts, tenants on zamindari tracts. However, the association failed to achieve an all India character. It became bigger, 44, but it did not achieve an all India character. So now we want a body which will work on better bit of India, but achieve an all India character. These were the two associations out of three which are there, which are the precursors. First one was by Dadabai, East India Association. Second one was 10 years later, 1866, के बाद 1876, Indian Association by Surendranath Banerjee. Moving to the third organization, Indian National Conference. Third precursor of Congress was Conference. There were more, as I told you, but in your syllabus we have only these three. Surendranath Banerjee. Once again, Surendranath Banerjee was here also. Surendranath Banerjee is in the second and the third Indian Association and Indian National Conference. Surendranath Banerjee convened an All India National Conference. Convened means called for an All India National Conference at Kolkata 83. He said, if you want to be a part of a political organization or movement, please come to the All India National Conference. All India National Conference, the Indian National Conference, was a provincial organization. Provincial means temporary. It was a temporary organization offering a model to the Indian National Congress, which got formed 2 years later. So the conference started 2 years early. Indian National Conference started 2 years early. Indian National Congress started 2 years later. Conference eventually merged into Congress because Congress became bigger and we have the Congress today. Its aim was for the working for the welfare of the Indians, just like the Indian National Congress. These are the three precursors which you have, precursors of Indian National Congress. That is Congress के पहले ये three organizations जो आया था, which are there in your syllabus. There are more, as I told you, but you have to study only these three. Moving to Indian National Congress, that is the formation, very, very, very important. It's a sure short answer. They have to ask you formation of Indian National Congress. Why? Because you know how important Indian National Congress has been a part of India's history, of political history. It's very important and you need to know how the Congress was formed. I have divided the formation of Congress into 4 points. You need to know all 4 points from long answer point of view as well as each point from short answer point of view. The first one out of the 4 points, formation of an all India political body. So up till now, as we have seen, that political bodies were getting formed, but they were operating in specific regions or specific provinces or states. At that time, we used to call them provinces. Now we want to form an all India political body which will work on all India scale. Indian leaders like Surendranath Banerjee, Dadabhai Navroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Justice Rana Day, others went to form an all India political body. They all wanted to come together. Now they have formed individual political bodies. Now they want to form an all India political body. This organization's aim would draw the government's attention to administrative drawbacks and give them means to rectify them. So, wherever there is an administrative drawback, wherever the government is not working towards this problem, this organization will highlight that problem and give them solutions also for it. Problem भी बताएंगे, solution भी बताएंगे. Aim is to improve the administrative drawbacks which are happening in India. So first point, formation of an all India political body. Second one, role of AOU. AOU's image is here, you need to know. AOU, a retired British member of the Indian Civil Services, helped the Indian leaders. So now we are getting help from a British member also. AOU, who was a retired British member of the Indian Civil Services. How does he help the Indians to form Congress? He told us, go ahead, form Congress. He told the Indians, go ahead, form Congress. Kaise? He wrote an open letter to the graduates of Calcutta University, asking them to dedicate their service for an organization. This appeal produced the desired results. So he writes an open letter. An open letter is like an announcement. At that time, you don't come and announce in public, rather, you write an open letter. So, open letters were either addressed to an individual, open letters were either addressed to a specific topic, and you just put it out there on the internet. Obviously no internet, but you put it out there on the street that this is an open letter and let everybody read it. So it may be related to a person, but everybody else will also read it to get knowledge. It may be on the internet, it may be with respect to a specific purpose. It's out there. It may be not addressed to you, but its aim is to bring to your attention the problem or something on those lines. So he wrote an open letter to the graduates of Calcutta University and told them that come and dedicate your services. Come and dedicate your services for an organization. 1884, Hume, in consultation with the Indian leaders, formed. Now a body gets formed. So these people come together, these leaders come together and form a body called as Indian National Union. Very important. This body is called as Indian National Union. Third one, act as a safety valve. The Viceroy Lord Dufferin favored the formation of the Congress. So AOU says helps the Indians to form an body. Lord Dufferin also favors the formation of the body. Now, why did Lord Dufferin, who was the Viceroy, say yes? Because he had his own reasons, he had his own motives. He wanted to act as a safety valve for popular discontent, thereby safeguarding the British interest in India. Very important statement, reading it once again. He wanted to act as a safety valve for popular discontent, thereby safeguarding the British interest in India. At that time, the British was very, very unpopular. Indians were discontent with the Britishers. Because Britishers were only doing what they wanted, basically exploit Indians. And at that time, he felt, Lord Dufferin, who was the Viceroy at that time, he said that we should help Indians in some way because we have become popularly discontent. Basically, the Indians are not happy with the Britishers at all. The Indians are not happy with the Britishers at all. So some help dena chahiye, some relief dena chahiye. So he wanted to act as a safety valve. You can't just keep saying no, just help them in some way so that they become a little of cool, or they become a little calm, because they are at the moment very, very unhappy with the Britishers. Indians are at the moment very, very unhappy with the Britishers. That's why they want a all India political body who's going to speak about the administrative drawbacks. So he wanted to safeguard the British interest in India. The second point, the Congress stood for the hopes and aspirations of the people of India who accepted its leadership in launching the freedom movement. The goal of the Congress was finally achieved, as we can see, in 1947, when we finally got independence. But Congress was for the hopes and aspirations for the Indians. So we've done 3 points. Final one, fourth one, yearly sessions. So if I do yearly sessions, so with the help of these leaders, with the help of AOU, with the help of Lord Dufferin acting as a safety valve, an Indian National Union or a political body has started. The name of the body was Indian National Union. The Indian National Union or the Congress held its sessions every year in December in different parts of the country, and the number of delegates soon increased in thousands. So you can see a body is growing. More and more people are joining this political body, and it held its session in different parts of the country to show that it was an all India body. The Congress held its sessions to chalk down the programs to achieve in its aims. Changes were made from the initial aims from time to time according to the changed situations or circumstances. So it wrote down the aims, what they want to achieve. As we move forward in time, they also changed their aims as per the changing situations. After the 4 points of formation of Indian National Congress, we do the aims of the Indian National Congress. Very important. Sure. They again have to ask you the aims of the Indian National Congress. In its presidential address at the first session of Indian National Congress, W.C. Banerjee, his photo will come on the next page, declared the following aims of the Indian National Congress. These will be the aims of INC: to train and organize public opinion in the country. You will train and organize public opinion. Whatever the people want, we will work for the people, for the betterment of the people and country. Feelings of national unity, to develop and consolidate the feelings of national unity, irrespective of caste, creed, or province. To formulate popular demands and present it before the government. Whatever the people want, whatever the betterment of the country wants, we will write it down and present it to the government. And to promote friendly relations between nationalist political workers from different parts of the country. You want India to get united, hence we are forming an all India political body. We want nationalist workers to work together. Up till now, nationalist workers to some extent were working in their specific states, in their specific provinces. Now we want them that if you all have a same mindset, we should work together all over India for the betterment and work against the Congress. Aims of the Congress, very, very important. Moving to sessions of the Congress, we have the first 2 sessions of the Congress in your syllabus. When, where, and under whose presidentship was the first session of the Congress held? So the first session of the Congress was held under the presidentship of W.C. Banerjee. Please see his photo. W.C. Banerjee. It was attended by 72 delegates. Can you see 72 delegates attend the first session? As sessions go ahead, thousands of them started joining. These sessions, these delegates were from all parts of India. Some of the prominent people were Dadabhai Nauroji, you've already heard his name. He's going to come in the next chapter also. K.T. Telang, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tayyabji, G. Subramaniam Iyer, Ananda Charlu, N.G. Chandravarkar, and Justice Rana. Point number 2. The conference of the representatives of different parts of India was convened by the Union at Pune. So the first session was going to get held at Pune, very important, December 25, 1885. So three things are important to know in that line number 2 itself. The date, December 25, 1885. The place, that was Pune, was the first session to be held. And at that time, you don't call it the Indian National Congress, you call it the Union, Indian National Union. 3 points in the line number 2 itself. Plague broke out in Pune at that time, 1885 May. So the meeting was shifted to Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit College, Mumbai, from December 28 to 31, 1885. Dates and place are important. Pune to Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit College, December 25 to then move to December 28 to 31. On the suggestion of Dadabhai Nauroji, the name of the union now was changed to Indian National Congress. Once again, on the suggestion of Dadabhai, they changed the name of the Indian National Union to Indian National Congress. Thus, the formation of the Congress was held on December 28, 1885. These two dates are important. Hence, founder of the Congress is also known as Dadabhai Nauroji. Founder of the Congress is also called as Dadabhai Nauroji. Final answer for your chapter, second session of the Indian National Congress. The second session of the Congress was held in 1886, 1 year later at Kolkata, under the presidency of Dadabhai Nauroji. Some of the delegates were received by Lord Dufferin as distinguished visitors to the capital. So Dadabhai Nauroji, second session president held at Kolkata, and Lord Dufferin also attends it. Some of the delegates were received by Lord Dufferin as distinguished visitors to the capital. Two important things I want to bring to your notice is, they say second session was held at Kolkata. Distinguished visitors to the capital were received by Lord Dufferin, because at that time Kolkata was our capital. That is, the British India ka Kolkata was the capital till 1911. Then they shifted it to Delhi. So that's why they say distinguished visitors to the capital. And number two, the first president of the Indian National Congress was W.C. Banerjee. Spelling is important. And on the previous page, you have done Surendranath Banerjee. These are two different leaders, and their spellings are also two different. So don't make a mistake there. Moving to two additional questions which are there. Question 25. What was the nature of political associations which were formed before the INC, before the National Congress? So were they organizations before the Congress? Yes, they were called as precursors. What was the precursors ka nature? Why couldn't they make it all India? Is because of these 2 points. By the second half of the 19th century, emerged the consciousness among Indians that the British were exercising control over the resources of India. That's what you studied in chapter 2. Now we have got nationalism in us. We want India and we want the British to leave. That's what they are saying. By the second half of the 19th century, the people realized British were exercising control over the Indian resources and the lives of its people. And until this control ended, India could not become a sovereign nation. India now wanted to become an independent nation. This consciousness led to the formation of number of political associations. led by English educated professionals. So they said now, as you said, see in chapter 2, one person is not going to make an impact as much as an entire organization. So now they have started forming political associations. The initial associations were formed by English educated professionals. So India में earlier initial associations were formed by English educated professionals. Though many of these associations were formed in specific parts of the country, they had common goals for all people of India. So they are although made in specific parts of country, their goals were very common. But they did not work for any religion community. They did not work for any religion community or caste. They want specific goals. They want common goals. Although they are in specific parts of the country, they want common goals for the people of India. Now we are becoming India. Nationalism is arising. Upper class, lower class, people from the east, west, north, south of India, women, children, everybody, working class, non-working class, everybody joining in. Hence, common goals for all the people of India. Rather than working for one religion, community, or class, you're working for all over India. Second additional questions, name two associations which acted as forerunners. The Congress, forerunners of the Congress, precursors. You have already done. I've added some more names if you want. You have done 3 in your chapter. Here there are some more names. The first political associations to be started in India were Landholders Society in Kolkata, 1838. Many public associations were started in different parts of the country, like Bengal British India Society, British Indian Association, East India Association, Purna Sarvajanik Sabha, LIS, London Indian Society, Indian Association. These associations served as a base for the formation of Congress, which was an all India political organization. These are application questions which are based from the chapter only. So I'm going to put repeated directly because these answers are there before also. It's just in a application form. Imagine you were a weaver in a traditional loom weaving saris. List the difficulties that you are going to face in the second half of the 19th century. The economic exploitations at the hand of the British made it very difficult for weavers to survive in the second half of the 19th century. Some difficulties which I face as a weaver would be: number one, heavy duties. Heavy taxes were imposed on Indian silk and cotton textiles in Britain. When I'm sending them goods, they are taxing me very high and I'm forced to pay the tax. Cheap machine made products were imported from British. So when I send the goods there, I'm paying tax, very high tax. When the goods come here, they don't pay tax. This destroyed handloom industry, forcing weavers to become unemployed. Disappearance of buyers and patrons, that is, princes, chieftains, and zamindars were pushed into poverty, hence they are not buying my products. So my prices are going high. I'm competing with cheaper goods. My prices are going high. I'm competing with cheaper goods. Point number 2. Plus, there are no buyers for my product also as a weaver. Due to these economic policies, India became a source of raw material for the British and a market for the finished goods. They are taking our products and selling it back to us only. They are taking at a cheaper rate and selling at a higher rate. This crippled our Indian economy and grew their British economy. This destroyed artisans and craftsmen. It's an application-based question. All 3 points were there before also. Heavy duties, machine-made cheaper goods, disappearance of traditional buyers, and economic policy which crippled India. I'm going to put this also repeated. Imagine you are a member of the Brahmo Samaj. Elaborate what convinced you to join Brahmo Samaj and how you were influenced by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So your contributions of Raja Ram Mohan Roy come here. Imagine you are living in the second half of the 19th century in a city. State how you feel about British and what was responsible for creating such an attitude. Economic exploitations. This answer is also repeated. And suppose you are a student living in the second half of the 19th century. State how your routine of reading a newspaper every day created strong national sentiments against the British. Role of press, again repeated. This brings us to the end of the growth of nationalism chapter, total of 30 questions.